I'm back. Okay, so chapter 22. And you can follow along with me if you want to. It's totally fine. I'm going to zoom it in so it's big enough that you can follow along with me. This one's a little long, so hopefully we can get this one busted out today. Okay. Captain Smith, you shall find Powhatan to use you kindly, but trust him not, for he hath sent for you only to cut your throats. That sounds promising. Chief of the Warowasaks telling Captain Smith not to trust Chief Powhatan. But remember, Chief Powhatan was kind of angry with the whole crowning him and making him subject to King James. So there might be some repercussions to that. There might be some results of that. But then you also have, Sam is also going through a grieving process now because he has lost he has lost Reverend Hunt now. So we'll see how he responds and reacts to that as this chapter progresses. Our trouble starts, trouble, foreshadowing. We've got trouble already in chapter 22. 21. What's chapter 22? Sorry. What day is it? I don't even know. Okay. Our trouble starts when winter sets in. If we had more skilled farmers and hunters, and if we all worked at farming and hunting, we might be able to produce enough food to get us through the winter. But as it is, our men are kept busy searching for gold and digging for sassafras and making clapboards, glass, pitch, tar, and soap ashes to ship back to England, in the hopes that something in that lot will make a profit for the Virginia Company. And to make things worse, when Captain Newport leaves in December, he takes a lot of our food stores. With him saying he and his sailors will need them for a long voyage home. At least they take Captain Ratcliffe as well, and rids us of him. When our barrels are close to empty, Captain Smith goes to trade with the natives for grain, but he comes back empty-handed. Chief Powhatan has commanded that all of his tribes are not to trade with us. Uh-oh. He is wielding his power, said Captain Smith. He is showing us that the crowning ceremony angered him and that his power is not diminished by it. We will see what else he plans to do. We are allowed 1 cup of grain for each person each day. I'm always hungry. I often think of the feast at Warokomoco and I wish I was there again. Richard and I dig up sassafras root to chew on to ease our hunger, and then we talk about food, trying to use our minds to fill our bellies. My mom used to make Yorkshire pudding at Christmas time, I say, with the crust just a little brown and loads of gravy. Richard closes his eyes, imagining. And remember All Saints' Day at the orphanage, she asks, when we had stew with enough meat in it so everyone got some? We talk about the birds and fish we roasted on Nevis, and I tell him again about the mounds of peas and squash and venison at the Warokomoco feast. Soon our jaws are tired from chewing on the sassafras roots, and for a time our bellies are fooled into thinking we've eaten. Then one day, we have good news, or what seems like good news. 2 natives arrive to tell us that Chief Powhatan is ready to trade. He will give us food if we bring him what he wants: a grindstone, a rooster, a hen, copper, beads, 50 swords, several muskets, and workmen to build him an English-style house. He knows we're hungry enough that Captain Smith might well give him all he wants, including the weapons. President Smith rubs his forehead and says quietly, "We are desperate for food." To the messengers in Algonquin, he says, "Tell Chief Powhatan we come, give things he wants." But as the messengers walk away, he says in English, "Except the guns and swords, I will throw in some extra gifts instead." I smile. Watching the battle of wills between Captain Smith and Chief Powhatan is like watching the dance of a sword fight between 2 proud, powerful men. We load up 2 barges in the Discovery for the trip to Warokomoco. We hope to bring all 3 of the vessels back laden with food. The first night we stop at the Warowasak village and are welcomed as guests. Chief Sasitikam shares his pipe of tobacco with Captain Smith and shares some advice as well. I listen hard to understand the Algonquin words. Chief Powhatan will treat you kindly, but do not trust him, he says. He has sent for you only to slit your throats. Captain Smith does not seem surprised, and I realize he has already guessed that this might be a trap. "We keep guns ready," he says in his choppy Algonquin. Then he looks at me. "I leave boy with you," he says. He asks Chief Sestiticum. "I send messenger to him if I did. Boy go to Jamestown and tell others." This chills me to the bones. I want to object, to tell Captain Smith not to go. Why is he willingly walking into a trap? We are surviving on our grain. I want to tell him. Captain Newport will be back soon. Let us all return to Jamestown tomorrow and wait for the supply ship. But I don't say anything. It's not my place. Chief Sestiticum agrees. Captain Smith and the other men will go on to Robocomoco in the morning. I will stay in the Rohoasac village and wait. If Captain Smith is killed, I will return to Jamestown to bring the news. The next morning, I watch the Discovery sail away with Captain Smith at her helm, and I wonder if it will be the last time I see him. I push down sadness. I have already lost Reverend Hunt, and I don't want to lose Captain Smith as well. I tell myself that he is wily and smart and will not easily fall into Chief Powhatan's trap. The Rohoasac village is a busy place, and I want to do my share of the work, but when I try to help two girls with their pounding of corn into meal, Kanta, Chief Sestiticum's son, pulls me away. "That work is for women to do," he says. "I will show you men's work." He takes me into the forest. There is a thin layer of snow on the dead leaves, and my feet crunch loudly on them. He stops and looks at me, frowning. "You are very loud," he says. He inspects my shoes. "My mother will make you moccasins." He looks around, finds a sapling that seems to be just right for what he's searching for, and cuts it down with his hatchet. "I will teach you how to make a bow and arrows," he said. Working with wood and stone is a good way to keep my mind off what might be happening with Captain Smith. Kanta teaches me how to peel the bark off the saplings, cut notches for the bowstrings, and string it with a strong gut. We make several arrow shafts from straight, thin wood. He shows me how to make an arrowhead, chipping a piece of rock until it's right shape. It is a slow process, and I ruin several pieces of rock before I get it right. But finally, I'm able to make my first arrowhead. Then I tie it to a shaft and balance the shaft with feathers so that it will shoot straight. When we grow hungry, we go to the communal cook fire, and there we find a large clay pot filled with hominy and venison stew, fish on the grill, and bread baking in the hot ashes on the ground. "Eat," says Kanta. He tears off a piece of bread and uses an oyster shell to scoop stew right out of the pot. I do the same. It is delicious. This is what I've seen people do all day, just come up to the pot and take what they want to eat. I realize that they have no meal times and no rationing of food, and I think that these Powhatan people must be the wealthiest people on earth. A young woman comes to put a new loaf of bread in the ashes and to stir the pot of stew. She wears a kind of apron made of deerskin that hangs down to her knees. Her arms, face, and legs have colorful tattoos of patterns, flowers, fruits, and snakes. Her black hair is plaited into one long braid hanging down to her hips. She smiles shyly at me. How strange I must look to her in my English clothes. No messenger comes that day or the next. I don't know if this is good news or bad. I have no choice but to wait. At sunrise, I go with Kanta down to the river where he bathes in the frigid water. I stay shivering on the shore. Kanta sprinkles a bit of tobacco on the river, closes his eyes, and lifts his head, and I know he's praying. This is what Namatak did each morning when he lived with us in Jamestown. The days go by, and I learn more about men's work, which is mostly about hunting and fishing. I'm also careful to learn which chores are women's work so that I will not be embarrassing myself again by trying to do any of it. Planting, weeding, harvesting, making clay pots, cooking, making cloths, it's all for the girls and women to do. Kanta teaches me how to make a knife by chipping a piece of rock until it's sharp, then tying it with gut onto a short stick. He gives me a buckskin pouch and shows me how to hang it from my waist with a leather strap. My knife fits nicely inside. I continue to make my arrows, chipping the arrowheads, tying the feathers, until I have enough to go hunting. Kanta shows me how to weave a case so that I can carry my arrows on my back. He has me practice with my bow and arrows and a target until I can shoot straight. It snows. Kanta says this will make hunting even easier because we will see the animal tracks in the snow. I have my new moccasins, and I walk carefully heel to toe, and the way he's shown me, trying to be as silent as he is. I'm concentrating so hard that at first I do not notice someone else who's been walking quietly in the forest. Then suddenly I look up and I see him. "Namatak," I cry. I am very glad to see him. Then when I realize why he has come, I'm filled with fear. He's the messenger from Morokomoko. I stand, gripping my bow, waiting for the bad news. Namatek smiles. Do not look so worried, Samuel. Your master sends good wishes. I groan with relief, then I'm confused. Why have you come, and not Captain Smith? I ask him in English. He answers me in Algonquin. I am in his world now. Captain Smith says you will stay with the Rorosaks through the winter. You will learn more of the language and eat well. Kanta joins me. He and Namatek exchange the greeting of countrymen with one fist. Each taps first his own chest and forehead, and then taps the other boy's chest and forehead. Come, says Kanta. You must be hungry after your journey. We will hunt together. We sit with Namatek at the communal cook fire as he eats. I form my questions in Algonquin. Chief Powhatan make trap? I ask him. Now that I've heard the good news, I'm ready to hear the whole story. Yes, Namatek says, but your werewolf's as quick as a rabbit. The trap did not catch him. He grins. He likes Captain Smith as much as I do. In between mouthfuls, Namatek tells us what happened. Captain Smith and his men arrived in Morokomoko and were treated kindly. They traded for lots of corn, but by the time their boats were loaded up, the tide was out and the boats couldn't move. They had to spend the night in Morokomoko, staying in one of the houses. Just after dark, Captain Smith heard a sound at a door. It was Pocahontas. Her eyes were wide with terror. You must go, she says. In a little while, my father's men will bring you food. As soon as you put your weapons down and begin to eat, they will slit your throats with your own swords. And if they don't succeed, there will be a bigger attack later. She begged them to leave right away. She was crying. She knew that if she was caught warning Captain Smith, her father would have put her to death. She may have been play acting for the first time, I think, but this time she really did risk her life to save Captain Smith. The tide was still too low for them to leave. Within an hour, 10 strong warriors came with platters of food, just like Pocahontas had said they would. The warriors said the slow matches on the Englishmen's guns were smoking up the room, making them sick, and they should put them out. But Captain Smith just said, "Oh, we don't mind the smoke." Then he made the warriors taste all the food to make sure it wasn't poison. Captain Smith and his men ate their supper with their guns smoldering and ready. And later, big attack, I ask? Namatek tells us how the Englishmen kept up a guard half the night, standing with their muskets ready. There never was an attack. At midnight, the tide had risen enough to move the boats, and they left. So Captain Smith and his men are safe, and they have taken corn back to Jamestown. Thank you. Good news, I say to Namatek. It had begun to snow again, and Namatek is invited to stay the night. He sleeps in the family house with Kanta and me. The next day, the three of us go hunting. We walk quietly through the white forest, stalking rabbits. We see one, even I have been quiet enough not to startle it. Kanta and Namatek both look at me. They want me to shoot, to have a chance to make my first kill. Silently, I pull out an arrow and string it on my bow. I make my breath even and slow so that it will not affect my shot. I watch the rabbit as it hops along the undergrowth looking for food. I pull back the bowstring and aim. Then I let the arrow fly. There's a whoosh and a thud, and the arrow hits its mark. The hare lies still. Blood seeps out where my arrow has entered its side, staining the snow bright red. Kanta claps me on the back. You have learned well, he says. I'm still amazed at what I've done. Go take your prize and give thanks to God Okius for your meat, says Namatek. I tie the rabbit's hind feet to a piece of gut and hang it around my waist. We hunt some more, and the other two boys also get rabbits. The winter day is short. When the sun sinks down, casting long shadows over glittering snow, it's time to return to the village. I use my knife to cut open the rabbit's abdomen and clean out its entrails, and to peel the rabbit's skin away from the meat. Ew. My rabbit, which I have killed myself with a weapon I made myself, becomes part of the communal stew that evening. It makes me feel proud and strong. Namatek goes home to Morokomoko, and I stay at the Warosek village as Captain Smith has prescribed. Kant and I do more hunting. He shakes his head when he sees me trying to keep my hair, which is getting quite long, out of my way. He asks his mother to cut my hair for me, and she takes 2 mussel shells and grates away the hair on the right side of my head down to the scalp. It pinches and pulls, but I keep still. On the left side, she leaves it long, and she cuts a ridge of short hair down the middle of my head so that my hair looks very much like the other men and boys. There, said Kanta. Now it will not get caught in your bowstring. When the winds of February blow cold, I wear a mantle of deerskin. During the March thaw, I kill my first wild turkey. Kanta ties 2 of its feathers into the long sides of my hair. In late April, when the mosquitoes fly and gnats come out, Kanta shows me how a layer of bear bear grease mixed with powder of red pukan root keeps the bugs away. It also makes my skin red. I no longer look very much like an English boy. Can you imagine his appearance from the beginning of the book to now? Like, his appearance has definitely changed. Now he's probably more looking like a Native American physically than he looks like, a London boy. So, now he's living in this Native American village, the Warowasaks, and he's becoming one of their culture. He's learning so much about them. So his physical appearance is definitely changing. One day, we boys are playing a game that is much like English football. We have a goal at each end of the field, and we kick a ball made of skins, trying to score by kicking the ball into the other team's goal. I had finally gotten tired of sweating in my slacks and long-sleeve shirts during this game and had let Conta's sister make me a buckskin breechcloth to wear. The red pukan dye protects my back, chest, arms, and legs from insects and the burning of the sun, and my moccasins protect my feet for running. The right side of my hair had been newly shaved by Conta's mother, and the left side of my hair is quite long, almost to my shoulders. I've added a few shells to the feathers as ornaments. As we play, I hear a call. Wingapo, spoken with an English accent. I stop running. I have almost forgotten what English speech sounds like. What I see takes my breath away. It is Richard, Nathaniel, Henry, Abram, and several others. They look thin and wane. They're walking towards us. Richard calls out, speaking Algonquin as if he has memorized just what to say. Captain Smith send. Need eat. Find English boy Samuel. I sputter. Richard. I call to him. It's me. Richard's eyes go wide and his mouth drops open. By God, he's turned into a savage, Henry says. I ignore Henry and go to greet Richard and the others. The Indian boys gather around us. Are you here to bring me back? I ask, still not understanding why they're here. Richard shakes his head. We're here to stay for a while, to eat. Rats got into the grain. There were so many of them, they look like maggots squirming in the barrels. We have almost nothing left. So President Smith has sent us different places. Some he sent us to the river to live on oysters, some down the river to Point Comfort to live on fish, and some to friendly tribes. We got sent here. We have copper to pay our way. I translate as best as I can for Kanta. He nods and says he will go tell his father that they're here. So, Richard eyes me curiously. Did that stuff just get stuck in your hair, or did you put it there on purpose? I sock him playfully in the arm, and we both laugh, and I think of how I want to teach him what I've learned, how to make snares to catch beavers, otters, and squirrels, how to build a fire in a canoe at night so the fish will be mesmerized and come close so we can spear them, how to find mushrooms and roots and berries that are good to eat. I know that with the knowledge I've gained from living with the Warowasaks, we don't ever have to be hungry again. And that's the end of chapter 22. And I really think that this is a pivotal chapter because, you've got Captain Smith who told Samuel to go and live with these guys, and he lived with them for quite some time. Like, he lived with them right here. It tells you, when the winds of the February blow cold, I wear mantle. He was there during the March, in late April. So he was there for at least 2 or 3 months with the Warowasaks. And so towards the end, when he was met with, when his fellow friends from Jamestown showed up, they definitely looked like they hadn't been eating well. They were thin. And so Samuel's kind of excited. And it showed down here that, he's going to be able to show them how to do all of these things that he's so super excited to show them. And so I think we have a whole different side of Samuel now. Like, Samuel was at the very beginning, he was like, don't touch me. I'm Mr. Independent. I don't trust anyone. And now we're seeing a completely different side of him at this point. He accepts, the friendships that he's gaining. His circle is getting bigger. And, he's been living with Kanta and Namatak for quite some time. And so here did I say that right? Namatak, yeah. Did I say that right? Is it Namatak? For some reason it didn't sound right in my head, but I think it's right. So again, and then you've got the boys, Richard, Nathaniel, Henry, Abram, and several others. So there was about, it said at least 4, more than that. So 5 or 6 kiddos ended up showing up in the Barowasak village, and they were going to pay their way so that they could eat and survive. So even though Samuel was having this fantastic time in the Native American village, it sounds like all the meanwhile, Jamestown is not doing so well. So we'll have to find out what happens in chapter 23. And that'll probably happen towards the end of, I think I'm going to post chapter 23 on, what is today? I'll probably post chapter 23 on Wednesday. So I will give you chapter 23 on Wednesday. There's like 26 chapters, so we're almost there. This just kind of slowed us down a little bit. So I'm hoping to hear some of your thoughts to this. You can make some comments underneath, and we will just kind of discuss what you think about the chapters. All right, I will talk to you guys later. Enjoy the chapters.